Hey guys, we're back with the next episode of our Sryth fantasy text-based RPG. Last time, we were hanging around Talinas, looking around, finally got some battle markers or whatever they're called. Yeah, so now it's time to hit up some adventure, so we're gonna do that. Thanks so much for hanging out and joining me. Let's go. We should lower my camera just a tiny bit. Yay! Okay. Adventures. Nalia's Flight. Embark. The sight of three men chasing a much older man along the edge of the dark, deserted lane is all it takes to steal your will and propel you into action. Despite his advanced age and the raggedness of his breath, the old man moves with startling swiftness. Keeping just ahead of his silent pursuers, realizing that his desperate flight will take him past an intersecting street, you cut down an alley and move to intercept the group as they pass by. With your lungs about to burst and with a steady stream of sweat pouring down your brow, you reach the intersection of the two lanes. Pressing yourself up against the leaning, vine-covered wall of the courtyard, you wait for the arrival of four men, listening intently to the sharp echo of their approaching footfalls as you contemplate the timing of your unexpected intervention. The old man, much older than you had originally believed, staggers past your hiding place and suddenly stops. Gasping for air, he suddenly turns as if confronting the men running after him. His three pursuers, an unpleasant-looking armed lot, draw up to within a few yards of him and halt. You immediately sense the three men, despite their obvious desire to overtake the old man, are at apparent end of the chase, leery of advancing upon him. "Not a step closer, any of you," said the old man in between ragged gasps. You can still have what you came for, but at the agreed price. I'll not have dealings with thieves." Your pulse quickens as the old man holds up his right hand. A thin ring punch in his bony finger emits a faint blue glow. Your eyes dart back to the three men. You sense that they are about to set upon their prey. Without a second thought, you move to intervene. You step out of the shadows and place yourself between the old man and his three pursuers. With your back to the old man, you boldly tell the three others to leave him alone, moving your hand to your weapon in an attempt to bolster the effect of your brazen command. "It's none of your business, stranger," said one of the men, stepping forward, his hand clasped to the hilt of a dagger strapped to his belt. "I'll advise you to mind your own affairs." With no intention of heeding his warning, you hurriedly contemplate your next course of action. We can ask them again. I'm polite enough to say twice, like, "Hey, what's up? Yo, watch out, okay?" Your bold request elicits a menacing frown from the nearest of the three men. He draws his dagger and takes a single step in your direction before suddenly collapsing onto the street. His two cohorts, their eyes wide with fear, turn to flee, only to pitch forward and land on the ground in a heap. "They're only sleeping," said the old man, with the blue aura surrounding his ring dimmed slightly. "Let's move off before they wake up, and thank you, friend." You walk with the old man along the adjoining lane until he turns into a broad thoroughfare. There he stops and hands you a small foiled piece of yellowed paper. "That's what they came for," he says, pressing the paper into your hand. "It's yours now, friend. I don't know if it'll be of any use to you, but it's no longer something I want." You unfold the scrap of yellowed paper and discover it's a crudely sketched map of Bentwood Wood. Near the center of the map is a small X, next to which is scrawled Shadow Glen. You immediately realize that the map marks the location of the infamous Vale. The old man, whose name is Nolle, tells you that he owns a vast collection of rare documents and maps, and that he had travelled to Linus to meet with a man seeking to learn the location of Shadow Glen. "I needn't tell you that he was quick to set his gang of roughs on me," he said, shaking his head. "This sort of thing has happened before mine, but at my age I'm not quite up for all that I once was. Still, I'm capable of a few old tricks." Nolle twists the glowing ring on his finger and smiles. "You seem the sort of lass cut out for adventure. I reckon you might want to even take your chances with the trip to the Glen. I regret that I never made it there in my younger days, but it's only a small regret. It's almost impossible to find the ravine without a map, you know." You thank Nolle for having provided the location of the Shadow Glen, and he again thanks you for intervening on his behalf. You learn that he's staying in the Wild Arms, an inn in the eastern side of the city, enough to escort him there. He readily accepts, and when at last you reach the inn, he thanks you again and bids you farewell. As the old man makes his way into the inn, you turn and head off along the shadow-draped lane, your mind poring over all the various tales and legends you can recall with the fabled vale known as Shadow Glen. And get off the street, stay out safe at night. I mean, at least there's not a curfew like Sryth, I guess. Alright, let's try the fireside encounter. Up next, we have somewhere to go. We're not gonna go now. I put it in my notes. I think next episode I'm gonna take a look at my notes and see some places I need to go. Alright, the fireside encounter. Embark, I say. You make your way along Eastfell Lane in the northeastern corner of Talinis, moving through the ankle-deep new-fallen snow which of the past 2 hours has been blanketing the city. With the cold gnawing at your bones, the warm glow spilling out from the windows of the Foxton Ale House just up ahead on your left is more than you can hope to resist. Without second thought, you cross the deserted lane and head toward one of this quarter's more reputable establishments. Much to your surprise, the alehouse is practically empty. A few patrons sit at the table against the far wall, engaged in a game of Trader's Gambit. For a moment you contemplate joining the game, but the ache in your feet and your nearly frozen fingers turns your attention instead to the roaring fire. A narrow and worn roasting bench extends along the wall on either side of the fireplace, while there are a handful of folks sitting on the bench. Other places on either side of the hearth are unoccupied. Okay. Take the seat on the left, or we take the seat on the right, or choose to sit in the chair before the fire. I'm thinking chair right now, but let's try divination, see if it'll give me any insight. It is not. Alright, hit the chair then. The intense warmth being radiated by the fire seeps through the outer layers and begins to sail the shield that has penetrated your extremities. After several minutes in the chair before the hearth, feeling very much renewed, you're about to rise and head over to the ale cask when a young man in a leather belt strung with 3 daggers into the alehouse and takes a seat in the roasting bench on the left of the fire. The young man eagerly extends his hand and feet toward the flames and then turns and regards you with a friendly nod. Sure. The young man is visibly taken aback when you introduce yourself, and he stammers slightly and he tells you his name is Wailu. It's an honor to meet you, he says, regaining some of his composure, though he still continues to stare wide-eyed at you. Needless to say, I've heard about your adventures. I work at a Cooper's place up the road, but I'm an aspiring adventurer. I'm afraid, however, that as of yet there's not much of my own tales to bother telling. At length, Wailu bids you farewell and rises from the bench. He prepares to leave the alehouse. As he does, a small cloth pouch drops from amongst his meagre belongings and lands on the floor next to the hearth. He has not seen the pouch fall. When you return it, you retrieve the pouch and catch Wailu just outside the alehouse. He exhales deeply and gratefully accepts the returned pouch, which he promptly fastens to the inside of his tunic. You saved me a castful of heartache, he says, meaning your shoulder. I hope your honesty and kindness is returning you tenfold in the days ahead. Farewell, Allison. As you watch as Wailu departs until at last he passes around the bend of the snowy lane and is lost from sight. Okay. I'm noble, so of course I'm going to return it, and I don't need money or whatever's in that thing. Oh my gosh. They had me doing push-ups or something, and my trainer yesterday, was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. Oh my god. Push-ups and like all this stuff, like chest junk over the head and pulling down. Oh, I couldn't do push-ups. I told her, I was like, I can't do push-ups. How am I going to be an adventurer? I can't even do push-ups. That's another reason I like these sort of adventure type stories where you're an adventurer and you lived your life on the road a lot. Is because, I always think about how I am not in shape. And if it was like a zombie apocalypse or something, I would just be killed so fast. If there was this kind of world where you could become an adventurer and then go fight like denizens, like goblins and trolls and mages and all that, and you have magic powers, like, oof, I would have to do a lot of training before I started on this kind of journey. But I think it would help you get in shape as well, right? Because you have to just... That's what I want to, like, do, like, sword training and all that kind of stuff. Really get in shape with interesting, like, fantasy-based stuff would be awesome. They should open, like, a gym that's, like, fantasy-based training, like sword wielding and bow and just running and stuff that has to do with living in a world that's not so forgiving as our own, even though our world isn't very forgiving because of guns and just bad people and people being very selfish and very like the world owes them something when it doesn't. But living in times like this would be interesting, where it's about real good versus evil and not just people deciding what they think is good, which isn't good for everybody but only themselves. I rant, but that's the kind of exercise I would like, really. Alright, next one. This is a more than one parter. I don't know that I want to start more than one parter. Let me go. I'm gonna skip this one and do it when I start one, so that maybe I can do all parts. I don't know if there's 3 parts or what at once. So let's go to the Wounded Horseman. An early morning stroll along the wooded road with the sight of the high outer wall of Salinas takes an interesting turn when from around a bend ahead a lone rider suddenly appears, heading west at a frantic clip. You stand on the edge of the road and watch as the rider approaches. When he is within 20 yards of you, he tugs at the reins of the brown mare he's riding and draws up alongside you. The grey-bearded rider greets you in a curt nod and is about to speak when suddenly he suddenly clutches his midsection and almost doubles over in agony. He teeters back and forth in the saddle, and you rush forward, taking hold of his arms to prevent him from toppling off the horse. Your eyes are immediately drawn to his tunic. The worn garment is heavily stained with blood. The man gasps loudly and leans against the neck of the steed to steady himself. "Pay me no mind. These will heal," he croaks weakly. "Just a moment. Please give me just one moment." I bear ill tidings from Eastfell," he says when his breath returns. "The town was attacked this morning, and the watchtower was taken. I ride to Salinas to find Captain Yost in the north barracks and have him ride to Eastfell with 100 men. You heard of Eastfell, a small remote town east and north of Salinas, at the edge of the rugged patch of wood known as Tornbriar Thick. Intrigued and horrified by the man's story, you immediately press him for more information. He rarely provides it to you. He tells you that early this morning, just after dawn had broken, an army of goblins, but not like goblins he'd ever seen, poured into the wooded hills north of Eastfell and stormed the watchtower on the eastern edge of town. "The watchtower houses a garrison of our king's soldiers," he said. "Eastfell is a remote place surrounded by rugged country, and the soldiers serve alongside our militia, keeping the area safe." None of the soldiers and militia were overwhelmed, and the watchtower quickly fell into the hands of the marauding creatures. Some of the goblins, he tells you, ventured into the eastern half of the town and attacked those town folks who had not already fled into the safety of the hills. 3 of us left on horseback at the request of one of the surviving soldiers were to get help into Salinas. Our Captain Yost, I am to seek out. Well, things go on and get worse, my friend. Only a couple of miles back to the east, the 3 men ran afoul of some highwaymen. I managed to escape, all thanks due to the feet of this gal beneath me, but my companions were dragged from their horses. I shudder to think what's become of them." Without hesitation, realizing the gravity of the situation, you tell the man you'll go to Eastfell at once and do what you can to help his people and what remains of his defenders. "But surely you would do better to fetch help with me," he said in a pleading voice, after taken back by your bold words. "What can one woman hope to—" I'm Allison." The man's eyes suddenly widen and he exhales sharply. "You're Allison, or I'm much mistaken," he says, staring at you, believe. "Well, pay no mind to my rambling. If there's one woman in this entire kingdom who could—" "That's right." He roughly stops speaking slowly and suddenly climbs to the saddle and hands you the reins of his horse. "You're right to go and help, and I dare say most able. It takes only one voice to raise the alarm, and let the voice be mine. You may also bear news to the men who have remained that I've reached the city. Take my mare. She's swift mount. I pray that she carries you safely." "There's something else I nearly forgot," said the man, suddenly short of breath. He leans against the horse and takes hold of it, and you take hold of his arm to help steady him. "A sorceress," he finally continues. "Her face is painted and she wields powerful magic. The soldiers who survived the attack on the tower said a blast of fire tore through their brothers in arms, and that those in the flames didn't fell. The goblin creatures did." The man's description of the fire-wielding mage does not sit well with you. The thought of humans in league with goblins or other such wicked creatures is always unsettling. But there's something about the painted face that you feel cast a far sinister shadow of the sort of Eastfell. "Yes, restoration. They should let me use restoration every time. Channeling your power of restoration, you're able to almost completely heal the more serious of the man's severe wounds." He says in astonishment as a wide gash across his upper torso slowly shrinks until it is hardly more than a shallow scratch. "By the All-Father," he exclaims repeatedly, as the process is repeated a few more times. He makes you over and over. He gazes from his healed wounds and back to you in disbelief. Realizing there's no time to be wasted, you instruct him to continue this to the city and fetch all the help he can. You promise him, as you prepare to depart, that you will also attempt to find out the fate of his companions. "My prayers go with you, and I hope luck does as well," he says as you climb the saddle and turn your new-fed steed to the east. "I have a horse." With the final wave, the man departs, hurrying as fast as his legs will allow on the long, last stretch of road toward Salinas. I mean, this sounds urgent. I must need to do this now. You know with absolute certainty that you must head with all possible haste to Eastfell. all that this man has said is true, you alone may be the best position to speedily come to the aid of its people, or at the very least guide them out of peril. As you prepare to set out for the remote town east of Tilinus, you realize, based on what the wounded rider has told you, the danger likely awaits you not only in Eastfell, but also along the very road that will lead you there. Alright. I mean, let's travel then. You're less than 2 miles from Tilinus, bound for Eastfell, when the forest road along which you're riding suddenly becomes a scene of an ambush. A group of 6 rugged-looking men leap out of the woods on both sides, brandishing swords and axes. The men gruffly demand your gold and possessions, promising you some particularly painful consequences should you refuse to comply. Hey, fighting from the saddle. The apparent lack of fear in the face of your sudden assault seems to have somewhat unnerved the highwaymen. Turning in the saddle, you engage the 2 bandits close to you, hoping to put them down before they cause harm to either you or your horse. Kill. What are we subduing them for? So these 2 companions lying down on the road instantly breaks the will of the other highwaymen. They quickly scatter and flee into the forest on either side of the road. Only a few yards off the road to the north, you discover 2 men lying on their side, their arms and legs bound in thick, crude rope. You free them, and they painfully rise to their feet, thanking you repeatedly for saving them from the less than hospitable captors. As you suspected, these 2 men were the companions of the wounded rider who related to you the terrible news from Eastfell. After a few moments, when they have sufficiently recovered from their ordeal, you tell them to return to Tilinus to make certain that help is fetched to Eastfell with all possible haste. You are brave to be heading out that way, says one of the men as they depart. Our prayers go with you, but you will need more than that if you'll find of what you'll find there, I fear. Both men call after you, wishing you luck as you gallop off east, eager to reach Eastfell before further delay. The miles fall away, and soon you find yourself moving through the fields separated by bands of thick forest. That mark the outskirts of the town of Eastfell. You're within sight of some of the town's first outlying settlements when you came across a group of men, women, and children speeding west along the road in a bouncing wagon drawn by 2 large horses. Not that way, stranger! Shouts a man, holding the reins as the wagon hurtles past. They're to the hills south and west. Follow along if you need to. You turn and watch the wagon continue in its breakneck pace until it disappears in a bend in the road. It is seen that the townfolk have fled and are in the process of fleeing from Eastfell in the wake of the attack. You begin to wonder what you're likely to find upon your arrival in town when you're alerted to the movement ahead in the road. 3 short, green-skinned creatures are slowly moving up the middle of the road towards you. They've obviously spotted you, but their approach appears to be deliberately cautious. At first you believe them to be goblins. You suddenly recognize these foul creatures as carver claws, a rare and particularly cruel breed of goblin that were born out of the dark sorcery many years ago. Though the carver claws normally prefer to avoid contact with all other species, you know that they are sometimes to be found in the service of a more powerful creature, and you quickly recall the wounded rider mentioned of fire-wielding woman and the painted face. The 3 carver claws continue their slow and cautious advance until, without warning, they break into a charge, snarling viciously as they bear down on you with unnerving speed. Archery. You notch a few and fire 2 arrows in rapid succession, leaving 2 of the hideous creatures dead in the road in a matter of moments. The lone remaining carver claws turn and bolts, fleeing wildly into the forest and soon lost from sight. Wasting no time, you ride at hastening clip toward the heart of Eastfell. You arrive in the outskirts of Eastfell and find a town that bears all the signs of having been recently deserted. Scattered belongings and various odds and ends lie strewn about the main road leading through the town, and several horses that's trying to go wrong. Wander freely along the edges of the wide thoroughfare. After dismounting and tethering your steed to post inside a small stable, you proceed cautiously along the road and foot toward the center of town. You haven't gone far when you arrive at a spot where the street has been barricaded by a large pile of wood and stone. A group of 14 men are gathered behind the barricade. They turn and watch as you approach. 4 of them appear to be Tissian soldiers. It is one of the men who steps forward and addresses you. You introduce yourself to the man, and he immediately welcomes you, though he tells you that the situation is grim. "We're honoured by your presence, Ellison," he says, "but I'm afraid we need an army for what lies east of here. There's easily 100 of those creatures, maybe more, in the watchtower east of town, and who's to say more of them haven't poured out of the hills since this morning. We're hoping they don't sweep this way in a large number, or we'll be forced to retreat. The town is lost." He continues. "The man is about to begin relating to you the events that unfolded here early this morning, when you promptly interrupted with news that you're sure were welcomed by all. You tell the man that you met their messenger on the road outside of Tilinus, and all seem immensely relieved. "Then help will surely arrive soon," said one of the soldiers. "It can't come soon enough. If a large number of those creatures come this way, we'll have to fall back or die defending this pile of wood and rubble." The men relate to you as much as what you've already learned from the wounded rider you met near Tilinus. The watchtower east of the town, whose house a garrison of Tissian soldiers, of which the four behind the barricade are all that remains, are overrun just after dawn by a large force of vicious carver claws that swept out the wooded hills to the north. A sorceress is with them, grumbles one of the militiamen, his face streaked with sweat and grime. Imagine one of her own in league with that lot. She hides behind her painted face, but she can't hide her heart, which must be black as that of the beast she lords over. Her fire overwhelms us, said one of the soldiers, who showed his flame-blackened shield. 3 of our 4 fire spheres nearly wiped us all out before we could bring our arms to bear. The description of the sorceress worries you. You're immediately certain there's more to this business than a random attack by savage creatures of the wild in a remote town. Whatever sinister intentions are, you resolve that you will do what you can to see that they never come to fruition. When you tell the men that you have every intention of taking the fight to the enemy that has taken hold of the watchtower in the eastern portion of town, your announcement is immediately met with skepticism and words of caution. You do your best to wait here with us, said one of the soldiers, cautiously peeking over the top of the barricade toward the east part of town. Help from Talines will arrive soon enough, and we'll take the fight to those murderous creatures. Going back out there in small numbers or worse yet alone it's to invite death. Tell the men that you fear help may arrive too late, that leaving carver claws and their mysterious masters to their own devices in the tower only serves to strengthen their enemy's position. He emerged and went in silence. You know, you ain't even got nothing to say. Eastfell is deserted, save for the handful of soldiers and the few brave militia that remain barricaded behind a makeshift wall of logs and stones. Nothing moves in the eastern half of town. 40 men, including 4 soldiers who survived the attack on the watchtower, have resolved to wait here, defending the road leading west, while they wait to help to arrive from Talines. None of them dare to head into the eastern portion of town, where they say the roving bands of carver-claws make such an endeavour a foolhardy undertaking. Despite their unwillingness to venture out and engage the enemy that has taken the watchtower east of town, they remain awestruck by your willingness to boldly face the danger that lies beyond the largely illusionary safety of the barricade. Alright, you're not going to be safe behind some junk you put together. You move further through the outskirts of Eastfell, hoping to avoid the roving band of carver-claws that still prowl this area as you make your way toward the watchtower on the eastern edge of town. There's knife work to be done here. After nearly half a dozen close encounters with roving carver-claws, you reach the field on the outskirts of Eastfell at the center of which stands the watchtower. You stand at the edge of the wide field in the eastern border of Eastfell. In the center of which stands a tall, square wood and stone structure that formerly housed a regiment of Tissian soldiers. What you've learned from the few defenders to remain behind the barricade in Eastfell, the tower is filled with carver-claws. They are also told that the fire-wielding sorceress apparently commanding the foul creatures believes to still be in the watchtower. Let's go! Your approach is apparently not gone unnoticed. The tower door suddenly flies open and 6 carver-claws rush out across the field towards you. You boldly hold your ground and face their threatening charge. Dead! The 6 carver-claws lie dead at your feet. After taking a moment to catch your breath, you carefully survey the tower and the field that surrounds it. The creatures who invaded it and mercilessly slaughtered its finished. You're also aware the sorceress. Alright, let's just keep approaching. Okay, you sent 2 and 6, then 2, now 5. Like, if 6 can do it, you gotta send more than 6. Okay, finally. Okay. I mean, we're probably gonna get to 100, yeah? I mean, you should send 20 if you really... Oh. If you really want to do something. Because obviously I can take up to 8 so far. I mean, we're going to end up killing like 100 of them, huh? This is fun. You start across the open field toward the watchtower. You cover less than 20 yards when suddenly your eyes catch sight of a human silhouette as it moves into view in the topmost window. A little moment later, deafening roar fills the air as a large fireball hurtles out of the window and strikes down towards you. Near over the crack of the fireball fortification let me down before I started to do elementalism. The powerful air elemental answers your summons and swoops down from high directly into the path of the fireball. The elemental forces the deadly flames veer off course and it splashes to the ground several yards to your right, where it explodes, leaving a shallow crater and showering you with a cloud of earth and debris. With considerable distance still remaining between you and the base of the tower, your mind races you hurriedly ponder your next move. You sprint toward the base of the tower, praying that you'll reach it before victims of one of the fiery blasts being hurled down upon you from the windows. A deafening roar fills the air as a first fireball hurtles and streaks towards you. Alright, let's try fortification this time. Continue. And number 2. Back to elementalism. And number 3. Back to fortification. And number 4. Back to elementalism. And keep going. 5th. Back to fortification. And back to fortification. 7th. Elementalism. What about gating? We can't gate. Reach press the tower and move up to the door. Before you lay your hand upon its thick timbers, the door flings open and a massive one-eyed carver-claw leaps out and lands directly in front of you. The vicious creature swipes at you with its deadly talons, forcing you to drop back and assume a defensive stance. Death. The massive carver-claw clutches at its wounds, now riddled its festering torso, and collapses to the ground, coming to a rest face first in the widening pool of its pungent, thick black blood. Wasting no time, you step through the doorway and into the tower, only to find yourself immediately confronted by a trio of carver claws. The vicious creatures quickly surround you, with their deadly talons swiping out at you on all sides. Yep. More. How many have I beat now? After counting the 30th step, you step past the corpse of the slain carver claws. Oh my gosh! And cautiously mount the stairs that lead to the tower's second level. After counting 30 steps, you reach the landing and find yourself in a chamber that exactly mirrors the one below. A sudden movement from across the room draws your attention. Your eyes fall upon a curious and unwelcome sight. Standing in the far side of the chamber, at the base of the steeple, a set of steep steps leading up to the next level of the tower, is a black-haired woman in red robes. A hideous mass of red and orange paint really conceals her face. A chorus of vicious snarls echoes off the wall of the room as 4 carver claws charge down the steps and come to stand between you and their painted sorcerers. The 2 foremost of the savage creatures rush forward and attack. Death to the heathens. And more death. Goodbye. You look up for the corpses of the slain. Carver claws only see the tail end of the sorcerer's robe disappearing from view at the top of the stairs. Wasting no time, you bound up the steps after her. You reach the next level of the tower and find yourself confronted by the target of pursuit. Her cruel gaze stabs at you from behind the hideous mass of red and orange, and that hides her face and sending a shudder length to your spine. Without words, she levels her left hand and stretches out her wide fingers. In the palm of her hands erupts a massive fireball. The sphere of flame surges across the chamber towards you. Fortification. Fireball smashes into an invisible barrier and explodes, showering the chamber with thousands of red-hot embers. Hastily summoned magical shield has served you well, leaving you unharmed in the wake of a powerful detonation. Pursuit. You dash up the stairs on the heels of the painted sorcerer, eager to prevent her from either escaping or fetching any more of her foul minions. Springing up the last few steps, you leap into the topmost chamber of the tower, on the far side of which hovers a tall, swirling black portal. Is it a shadow gate? Strewn across the floor of the room, laying between the sorcerer and the portal, the bloody corpses of 3 slain soldiers, no doubt victims of the carver claw assault on the tower. Sorcerers rushes toward the portal, but you have no intention. Gating. Close that portal. Calling upon the power of gating, you focus in on the portal. The swirling black gate ripples violently for a moment and then suddenly vanishes. You successfully close the portal and prevented the sorcerers from escaping. Where you going, B? The sorcerer scowls as she steps forward, brandishing a dagger clutched in her tiny, bony hands. You manage to dodge her first 2 swipes and quickly counter with your own. Death to the heathen. The sorceress opened a massive scream, but no sound emerged. Instead, she slumped slightly to the floor and does not move again. Hey, adventure tokens! You're little doubt that the painted sorcerers use such a portal as you encounter in the chamber to gate in the carver claws that ravage Eastfell. Your purpose to take the watchtower remains unclear, but you're convinced that this is not a random or isolated incident. Your imagination flirts with countless dark and uninviting explanations for the events that transpired here. You're about to descend from this chamber when you suddenly spot a wooden box lying in the corner next to the body of the slain soldier. The box has no lock. You cautiously flip it up its thin lid to reveal its contents. Resting at the bottom of the box is a thin iron rod, a silver ring, 2 Quebec elixirs, and a leather pouch. You pick up the leather pouch and empty its contents into your hand. 8 adventurer tokens spill out in your upturned hand. So take all the items in the box. Confident you're not overlooking anything and eager to return to Eastfell, bearing news of your victory over the sorceress and her minions, you quickly make your way to the tower and head back towards town. You pass back to Eastfell and proceed along the main road toward the center of town. As you approach the stretch of road on which the barricade has been erected, you're greeted by a welcome of somewhat untimely sight. 6 dozen mounted Tizian soldiers and another dozen horse border rangers, slowly trotting along the main road leading to the town. The men at the head of the regiments watch you and rise forward to greet you. He introduces himself as Captain Yos, and you related to him the details of your victory over the Carver Claws and the Painted Sorcerers. He shakes his head and stares at you in disbelief. Well then, that's little enough to be said of our untimely arrival. But how could one woman go up against such odds and... Allison. The captain's eyes narrow and he peers at you curiously. I should have recognized you at once, said Captain Yos, sitting straight up in his saddle. Well met indeed, Allison. It's an honor for me to say that I know you, and not just of you. Captain Yos tells you that he and his men will now begin to help the townsfolk for the clean-up in the wake of these horrific events. The border rangers divide into 2 groups and set out at once to scout the surrounding countryside in case any of the vicious Carver Claws still prowl the area. The soldiers ride toward the eastern edge of town where they begin to clean up the carnage that surrounds the watchtower. It is a duty we accept with pleasure, grins Captain Yos. I wish you safely in your travels, Allison. May the All-Father guide and protect you. We cannot possibly thank you enough for all you've done here today. When the soldiers have gone, you proceed to the stables where you're pleased to find the mare still tethered where you left her. She stamps impatiently at you, untie the reins, and saddle her for the long ride back to Talinas. As you trot out of Eastfell, you can't help but wonder how long it will be before life in the small town returns to normal. Somehow you doubt it ever truly will. You've covered over half the distance to Talinas when once again encounter the rider whose timely arrival marked the beginning of your perilous adventure in Eastfell. He is riding east along the road at a good clip, but draws up next to you with an anxious look upon his face. Tell me the fight is not lost, he cries, apparently assuming the worst. A whole regiment of soldiers rode out of the city hours ago. Have you seen them pass? And relate to the man all that transpired in Eastfell. He inhales deeply in relief and shakes his head. Surely the blood of Seer runs through you, he cries. I can hardly be playing fate that led to our meeting on this very road. In the outset of these terrible events, there's a greater hand in all this, I'm certain of it. Seer the Undaunted. Powerful warrior to ever walk upon Sryth. Okay, I'll take that. I could be related to Seer. The man leans over and meets you in a shoulder cross. He then thanks you repeatedly, and then with a smirk as if he can have his horse back. You swap horses with him and he waves as he rides off to the east atop his beloved steed. On back of your new mount, you continue west along the road at a leisurely pace. The brilliant amber and crimson hues of the setting sun dazzle your eyes as the road passes over the back of your low hill, and the high outer wall of the Tesis capital looms in view at the edge of your sight. Congratulations, Allison. Your victory over the Painted Sorcerers and a foul Carver Claw means to save the town of Eastfell from gruesome fate. Your heroic efforts on behalf of the town's eternally grateful residents will never be forgotten. Never? Alright, we're at the 30-minute mark, so that was an awesome adventure. I always love to save a town, but I have a horse. I could use my own horse. So next time, we'll go through more adventures, I guess. Finish those up and then see what I got annotated to see what else we can catch back up with and finish off from things we've started. So thanks so much for hanging out and joining me. Until next time, you know what I'm going to say. Peace.